Hey everyone, welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report. In this daily editorial, we're getting an update from Eskay Mining, trade on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol ESK, and on the OTCQX under the symbol ESKYF. I am chatting with John DeDecker, the Vice President of Exploration over at Eskay Mining. Now, Eskay Mining focused in the Golden Triangle at the consolidated Eskay property. I'm bringing John on the show because just at the tail end of last week, February 23rd, the company released the final drill results from the 2022 drill program. Now, I'm going to get John more or less just to recap this program for us and look ahead to where the exploration most likely will be coming from this year on this project. Now, John, 2022, the company drilled just short of 30,000 meters. Please remind everybody the overall strategy. What were the goals behind last year's drill program, please?
All right. Well, thanks for having me back again, Corey. So our big goal of 2022 is to really show that we had district scale potential for Eskay Creek type VMS deposits. As a lot of people may have seen in some of my more technical videos on our website, these VMS systems really tend to occur in clusters with each other. It's very rare, if not impossible, to find one of these deposits by itself. So, that's why we have this world-class Eskay Creek mine sitting all by itself. And there's been a lot of exploration over the previous 30 years looking for more of these deposits. And people have certainly found a lot of gold and silver bearing rocks through drill core and rock chip sampling around the property, but there really hasn't been a good comprehensive model for understanding the occurrence of gold and silver on this property. And that's really what we've been focusing on over the last 3 years or so, and really coming into full steam in 2022, where I think we can confidently say that we have a big trend of VMS systems on our property. And that includes TV and Jeff, which has been the focus of a lot of the last few years of drilling. Jeff North, which was something that we expanded drilling with in 2022, which I'll discuss a little bit. We also have Sib and Lulu, which has been the focus of drilling in the first couple of decades of the 21st century, and we'll be returning to coming up in the next year, as well as a newly identified trend, the Scarlet Tarn trend, which is based on some of the work that was done in 1990, and then really hasn't been looked at since then until the very end of last season and coming into this season, where we actually had our maiden drill program up there. So our big goal is showing that we've got district scale potential, and I think we're just starting to see the tip of the iceberg as far as that goes on our property.
Okay, let's break down these different areas then, starting off with the TV and Jeff areas. Now, these, as you said, you've done more work here. These have been a real driver for the company. What do you see in terms of mineralization, the size of mineralization that you're seeing, and how do you go about continuing to move these forward and continuing to grow these areas?
Well, TV and Jeff occur, and Jeff North, I might add, occur on a 4.5 kilometer trend of VMS mineralization on the east limb of the Eskay anticline within rocks from the lower Hazelton group. And this is an important distinction, where one of the big takeaways from this season and the past few seasons actually is that we're shown that we have multiple horizons of VMS mineralization on our property, of which TV, Jeff, and Jeff North, as I mentioned, are hosted in the lower Hazelton group, meaning that they probably formed 15 to 20 million years before the VMS mineralization of the Eskay Creek mine. So we're actually able to show that mineralization extended over a much larger period of time and probably occurred in two distinct events, one in the lower Hazelton group and one in the Upper Hazelton group. So, this really opens up the prospectivity on the property to look at more of this Lower Hazelton group stratigraphy. As investors can see, TV has really become the star of the show on the TV Jeff trend, where we've been able to show that we have two distinct horizons of massive sulfide mineralization that's gold and silver bearing. The upper horizon at TV is overlain, by this massive sulfide zone overlying our extensive stockwork zone. And that's really what we've been able to show in 2022 is that we've expanded this massive sulfide zone, which now extends more than 100 meters along strike. That's with respect to our discovery hole last year that first drilled into this zone. And we've really been able to expand the stockwork zone that's really feeding into this massive sulfide zone. Now we're seeing that it extends about 175 meters north to south along strike, as well as extending 175 meters down dip from last year's drilling. But most significantly, I think, are some of the holes like TV 22106 and TV 22108 that encountered substantial intervals of anomalous gold mineralization with interspersed values over a gram per ton. And if people were to look at our press release, we have a map in there that actually shows where some of the rock chip sample results from this area are. And there are several results that are over 10 grams per ton gold in this area. So we're starting to get indications that the stockwork zone extends up dip to the west and may even extend to the southwest. And that's something that we're certainly going to be looking at further in 2023 is expanding the stockwork zone at TV. Now, working our way northwards to Jeff and Jeff North, we had an extensive drill program looking at geophysical targets up there. And what we found up there was the system, while we encountered a lot of VMS style mineralization, it is more of a base metal rich system with more zinc and copper, which indicates that we may be getting into more of a higher temperature portion of the system, where we are seeing things like TV and Eskay Creek itself appear to be a lower temperature VMS system with more precious metal enrichment. So we've certainly been able to show that we have a full 4.5 kilometer trend of VMS mineralization, where the precious metal occurrence seems to be focused mostly around the TV area, at least on that trend. And then that's not counting the new trend that we discovered over at the Scarlet Tarn trend, where we've been able to identify a parallel trend of VMS mineralization to the Eskay Creek, Eskay anticline trend, which TV and Jeff are components of.
Okay, so before we get into that other area, just a quick follow-up when it comes to either just TV or TV and Jeff, along with Jeff North combined. Are you guys getting any closer to releasing releasing a resource estimate, or is it still just continuing to step out, show size and scale?
I think we'll need to focus on showing the size and scale at TV in particular. I think there's still room for TV to grow there. Just looking at the results that we've released so far, we're able to define, and we give the dimensions of this zone, rough dimensions of this zone within the press release, but we're not prepared to release a resource on this at this point.
Okay. Let's move over then to this Scarlet Knob or Tarn Lake trend, or this corridor. We had some more news that came out of drilling from there in that most recent news release on February 23rd. But overall, I believe it was kind of your guys' first pass at this area. Take us through what you're encouraged about, and again, just how early stage it is here.
Well, I'll say that it is the maiden drill program in this area. As I had mentioned at the beginning of the interview, there really hasn't been any exploration in this area since 1990, so right after Eskay Creek was discovered. And one of the things that we determined at the end of last season, when we kind of first got boots on the ground up there with our new team, was that the geologic mapping and a lot of the understanding of this area was incorrect. We've actually been able to show that the rocks hosting the Tarn Lake and Scarlet Knob showings is that Eskay rhyolite. This is the upper Hazelton group stratigraphy that hosts the Eskay Creek mine, and that this was a big discovery just geologically that the maps really weren't correct. So we had to get out there in 2022 and really have an extensive mapping program that involved not only structural mapping, extensive geological sampling, as well as rock chip sampling of the sulfide mineralization, drone surveys. We really got out there and hit this area very, very hard, and were able to develop a proper geologic map and understanding of the stratigraphy in the area and the controls on sulfide mineralization, which we now see are really controlled by these east-west trending andesite dikes that we interpret to have been placed along these VMS synvolcanic feeder structures. These are the geological structures that supply the metal-enriched hydrothermal fluids to the seafloor. This is what creates the VMS deposit. And we focused on three of the areas for drilling. That would be Scarlet Ridge, Scarlet Valley, and Tarn Lake. And it appears that Tarn Lake is the core of this system. Just like TV and Jeff occur over a 4.5 kilometer trend, we're also getting this extensive trend that we call the Scarlet Tarn trend, where Tarn Lake has the most intense sulfide and gold and silver mineralization, as well as very intense hydrothermal alteration. One thing that we've shown in our previous two press releases that we've actually done work at Scarlet Knob as well. This is on the east side of Bruce Glacier, due east of Tarn Lake, along the same synvolcanic feeder structures that we see over, but at Tarn Lake and Scarlet Knob. And then we have 800 meters of glacier between these two showings. The fact that we have very encouraging rock chip sample results at both of these showings going right up to the margins of the glacier suggests, along with that east-west orientation along these feeder structures, that this mineralization may continue underneath the glacier. Looking at the drill results for Tarn Lake itself in this latest press release, you can see, particularly with that southern drill pad, this is where gold and silver mineralization is most ubiquitous. It's worth noting that most of the drill hole, particularly in Tarn 12 and Tarn 10, most of those drill holes have gold and silver mineralization in them, at least over 0.1 gram per ton, getting up to over 5 grams per ton gold equivalent, and some intervals in there that are associated with very intense replacement style mineralization. So what we're seeing there is very, very encouraging that most of the sulfide has gold and silver in it. You don't need much of this sulfide to generate strongly anomalous results. And then where we get this more massive sulfide, we're seeing very strong gold and silver numbers. And that we have actually TD'd, or that is, we ended these drill holes in some cases in mineralization. And that's mostly just because of fault zones that kind of made drilling more difficult. So we're going to be returning to this area to follow up on this drilling, because as you can see in the cross sections and the release, that this gold and silver mineralization is still open below these drill holes. So that would be down stratigraphic section. We have open to the east under Bruce Glacier, as well as open to the west, and that's up stratigraphic section. And it's important to note that up stratigraphic section to the west brings us closer to the contact mudstone horizon that hosts the Eskay Creek deposit, which is only 7 kilometers away from Tarn Lake. So we're very encouraged by the fact that we're seeing robust gold and silver results in rocks that have minor amounts to very high amounts of sulfide within them, as well as the extent of the rock chip sampling and just the amount of sulfide mineralization we see on surface, coupled with the favorable stratigraphy for Eskay Creek-like mineralization, is very encouraging, and we're going to be focusing quite a bit on this area coming up in 2023.
So, John, simplify it for us then. How much drilling do you think you need to do in this relatively newer area? Because I know you put in limited holes this year in that Tarn Lake area. And at that most recent news release, it did show some gold mineralization, but it wasn't that super high grade that people would like to see, like that Eskay Creek or over those very long widths. So, what else do you need to do here? How much drilling will it take?
Well, one of the beautiful things about this area is it's above tree line and the rocks are glacially polished. We can actually get out there with rock saws and cut directly into the rock on the surface and do what we call channel sampling, which is essentially providing us the same sort of data that a drill would, but at a fraction of the cost. So we're going to be doing extensive amounts of channel sampling over this entire area, which will give us a much better, cast a much wider net over this area for a fraction of the cost of drilling. And then we'll be able to follow up on these results. We'll have our handheld XRF units out there, and we'll be able to really kind of narrow down where exactly we want to drill based on channel sampling, as well as the fact that our mapping efforts out there in 2022 have really clarified a lot of the issues with the existing maps. So now we have a good map to work off of. We know the stratigraphy out there, and we'll be able to vector towards mineralized horizons a lot better, of which I think we have intercepted a good replacement horizon on that southern drill pad. So we'll be able to target and orient our drill holes a lot better now that we have an understanding of what's going on in the subsurface, which, honestly, the only way to do it is just to start drilling holes and figure that out. So now we have our combined efforts of mapping and our drilling from this year. We'll be able to actually kind of point the drills more into the higher grade zones of this system along this trend that we're seeing that's really kind of dipping to the northwest, and that is defining kind of a stratiform horizon. And now we'll be able to target this horizon and expand that going down dip and along strike. And we know for certain that we're in a big feeder zone, and most likely that's going to be feeding seafloor horizon off to the west. So that's what we'll get our mapping teams out as early as possible in 2023 to identify any of these seafloor positions, and then we'll get our drills onto those. So, a lot of this is going to be much more targeted drilling in 2023, and taking advantage of the exposure out there to do channel sampling at a fraction of the cost.
Okay. So sounds like you're going to be going back to a lot of different areas here. Before I get you out of here, the company was also building your land package, acquiring new claims back last year and in 2021. Any work that's going to be done on some of these newer areas?
So we did some work on a lot of these newer claims. They're up to the north. They kind of enclose Skeena Resources claims now. Our newer claims are up just north of where the Eskay Deeps area is, as well as some areas up close to the Iskit River, where we know that there are occurrences of Hazelton Group stratigraphy that are prospective up there as well. So it's kind of like bridging the gap between some of our northern claims and over towards the Scarlet Tarn area and just north of Eskay Creek as well. So there's just some claims that came open that have prospectivity to them, as well as some infrastructure that's lying on the claims as well that are advantageous for us.
Okay. John, before I get you out of here, everybody always wants to know cash in the bank. Where does the company stand? Can you give us a ballpark number, please?
Roughly, according to our November numbers that are posted on our website, at about $3 million cash in the bank right now.
John, thank you very much for this update. If anybody has any follow-up questions on the drilling from last year, any of the plans for this year, or anything else going on within Eskay Mining, please email me, fleck@kereport.com. I'll get John back on as we get some more news on any drill program for this year and to address any of your questions. So, John, thanks again for your time today. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. You too.